a man can get.
Welcome back. We'll get to the Cowboys in just a second. But first, little Bears-Redskins Monday Night Football action. Khalil Mack swatting down a ball out of Keenum's hand for the strip sack. I mean, he's so good.
He had 2 of these last night. 2 strip sacks again. A national television Khalil Mack is like Hoodie Mellow, man. It just brings a whole nother version out of him, see?
Yeah, and he wasn't happy how he started the season. That first game against Green Bay didn't have the type of impact. That's one of my favorite plays. Strip sack, so you get the sack, the fumble.
Forced fumble. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Scoop and score. It's the old quad.
More Monday Night Football. Taylor Gabriel
crazy.
pulling off an unreal toe tap that was ruled incomplete, but then overturned for the touchdown.
I'm no big fan of review. I got to say, credit to the NFL officials in the review process here. In real time, this did not look like it was good.
No.
Upon review, you see, okay, that foot's down, and then, oh, he hits the pylon. That means you're in. Great job by them there.
Also giving him control. I thought when the ball was only in his right hand, they were going to be like, no control.
I liked it.
Washington's Terry McLaurin rises to make a tough catch across the middle for a touchdown.
Man, my man Chris Carter out here gambling wizard. Fox bet before the game, bet on Terry McLaurin. Who? This guy to score a touchdown, plus 250. Pay me my money, Chris Carter. Well, you got me money. You
was not a starter at Ohio State. 3rd-round draft pick, now starting, told me this summer that he was going to be a starter. Having a sensational, scored week 1, week 2, and week 3.
How about that?
Gotta start betting. In the CFL, Eskimos taking on Tiger Cats. Edmonton's Greg Ellensing holding on for an unbelievable touchdown grab here.
Oh, yeah, he's a good receiver. He's been playing a long time in the CFL, a possession receiver, playing in the slot. If he was in the NFL,
New England.
Of course he'd be playing for New England and would have been the MVP of the last Super Bowl. Great catch. Underrated athleticism.
Let's put him in the Hall of Fame with Edelman.
Well, yeah, up there, he can be in the Hall, yeah. I mean,
Something like
this
that.
ain't the NBA.
All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys now. One of 8 teams to start the year undefeated this season. While Jerry Jones lives for this hype, others aren't buying it wholesale. NFL writer Bill Barnwell says the Cowboys are going to decline as the season goes along and as their schedule gets tougher. The 3 teams Dallas has played so far have combined for 1 win and 8 losses. CC, you buying the Cowboys are as good as their 3-0 start?
Well, this is the thing. People early in the season, it's always puzzling to me, especially in the NFL. It's not college football. It's not Alabama. It's not Clemson playing against some coastal schools. It's the NFL. And every year we go through this scheduling. Sometimes you get a little better draw, but for the most part, everyone's schedule is difficult. Unless you're playing the AFC East. Now, you're getting some gifts, all right? The Jets quarterback got mono. Belichick might have sent that to him with Demaryius Thomas. We know they're just constantly rebuilding. But the schedule is what it is. The Dallas Cowboys and their ability to be able to throw the ball down the field with Dak Prescott, his improved passing ability with the addition of Randall Cobb and their wide receivers. If you look at them from an offensive standpoint, you say, wow, is that legitimate? Regardless of who they're playing. I believe it to be legitimate, just like Lamar Jackson there in Baltimore, him throwing the ball. I believe that's legitimate. So for me, when I'm looking at Dallas, yes, their schedule is going to get tougher, but this is a good football team that was limited in what they could do last year, and their quarterback has improved. So I like Bill Barnwell. He does some good stuff. Yes, their schedule, that's obvious. But to me, the obvious part is this is transferable. You think this is not going to help when they play Philadelphia a couple times? Dak being able to throw the ball like that? Yes, absolutely. So for me, I don't believe Ezekiel Elliott's going to be as worn out later in the season because they have a variety of different styles of how they can win the game, which we have not seen in Dak's 3 previous years. When Zeke didn't run or Zeke was out of the lineup, they struggled. To me, this is a different offense.
So I want to talk about Dak in a moment, but first to expand on your schedule point, because Bill does talk about that. There's 7 3-0 teams in football right now. And while there are no citadels you get to play in the NFL, all 3-0s aren't created equal. And I think people would say Green Bay at Chicago, Minnesota, Denver, or take the Rams. They've beaten Carolina, New Orleans, Cleveland. Those 3-0 have a little more meat to them than the 3-0 Buffalo has. Jets, Giants, Bengals. The 3-0 Dallas has that we've talked about. Giants, Washington, Miami. And so the schedule context does matter in this regard. Even if Dallas hadn't played really well, they probably could and should be 3-0, given you got the Giants with Eli, Washington with whatever they're doing, and the Miami Dolphins. But just because they've played inferior competition should not cloud this fact. They have played really well on both sides of the football. I would argue, aside from the first half against Miami, they've played really exceptional football throughout this entire season thus far. First half against Miami, they came out a little sleepy, maybe as teams might do if they start to underestimate or maybe properly estimate the Dolphins, and they still beat them by 25 points, shut them out in the second half. But the question for the Cowboys will be, throughout the year, how much do you believe in the quarterback? The defense, worst case scenario, is going to be above average. Best case scenario, going to be very good. The offensive line is healthy and playing extraordinary. Zeke is Zeke. They have the best total receiving core they have had in years in Dallas. So it is, how good is Dak Prescott? Thus far through 3 weeks, he's been one of the 2 best quarterbacks in football. Statistically speaking, only Mahomes has been better. Lamar had been better. Lamar took a step backwards this week. Skip pointed this out yesterday. I think it's a good point. Dak in the second half of games this year, 29 of 32. That's pretty damn good. Dak has been doing everything he has been asked to do. And so if you think that's a mirage, you're still going to discount the Cowboys. We're going to get to see over the next 2 weeks when they play the Saints and the Packers as far as how does Dak deal with a good pass rush. He hasn't had to face that. How does he deal with pressure in his face? He hasn't had to face that. But thus far, you can only pass the tests that you are asked to take. And the Cowboys have passed every test so far this season with flying colors. You have to give them credit for that. And when you're talking about them in totality of the season, what also matters is the Eagles are struggling. And the Cowboys, 11-5, where you win the division, and 11-5, where you're the wild card, are 2 drastically different seasons as far as your ability to go deep in the postseason. And that's where how Philadelphia plays factors into this.
I think your point is such a good one, though. He's been able to do this without the team having to rely on Ezekiel Elliott, where last year he was the bulk of their offense. We're coming into this season, we talked about, well, Ezekiel Elliott, without Zeke, what's Dak going to do? And just seeing what Dak was able to do, regardless of who the competition is, you're right, getting the ball downfield, being able to work the offense, and with a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterbacks coach, I think that gives you a lot of positivity looking to the future with this team.
To me, if we're looking at the natural growth of young quarterbacks compared to, let's microwave them, Baker Mayfield last year, now coming back this year, you want that natural, steady growth that we have. And you bring up a good point. What about the new coaches that he's dealing with? What about a new quarterback coach in John Kitna? Are we going to give the kid credit for that? What about Kellen Moore, a guy who has not proven as a play caller with Dak? And the biggest obstacle that no one's talking about, what about this kid performing under pressure with that big contract laying on the table? And 3 times he risked his pro career going out there, jeopardizing, what, $100 million guaranteed, Nick?
If not more.
So for me, I see this gradual progression of a guy who's getting better at his job, and people want to discredit it. And there's a lot of things going on around him behind the scenes that lets you know the type of leader he is, the way he can put things in certain compartments and be able to go out there on the field and play with. Everyone can't do that. So for me, I'm very impressed with Dak Prescott. I thought he would grow as a quarterback. He's even grown more than I had anticipated.
And the Cowboys not only have to stack wins early during the softer part of their schedule, they have to put on film a bunch of different ways to beat you, because they have a stretch later in the year where they play 6 straight games, and 5 of them are against maybe the 5 best defenses in football. They have Minnesota, Detroit, New England, Buffalo, Chicago, and the Rams. If you go into that stretch where the tape says stop Zeke and you win, then they are going to be at such a disadvantage when they hit the meat of their schedule as far as defenses they have to face. That doesn't even include the 2 times they got to play Philly. That doesn't include Green Bay in a couple weeks. Dallas will be tested. Dallas does not have a cakewalk schedule this season. Dallas just has had a cakewalk schedule thus far, but ultimately, all of the Cowboys conversations are going to circle back to how good do you think number 4 is? If you think he is a great quarterback, you probably think they can go to the Super Bowl.
Look, if they can get through this first stretch of the season, they've already got 3 wins. They play New Orleans, right? If they can get to 4-0, typically you can map out the rest of the season. That's the first quarter of the season. If the second quarter of the season, say they go 3-1, 3-1, and say the last month they go 2-2.
That's 12 wins.
Okay, we sitting pretty nice. So that's why it's important. If you can bank one of those quarters and get 4-0, because I don't think they're going to be able to go 4-0 in that stretch the other way. So this New Orleans game against Teddy, if they can get that win, I believe it will pay huge dividends, not only as far as the head-to-head, Nick, but as far as trying to get that home field advantage, because I believe it's going to take at least 12 wins to get that.
And with how well Dak's playing, it now looks like they would have been okay in this stretch without Zeke. But this is why, before the year, we talked about the perils of Zeke's holdout, because it was so critical that the Cowboys go 3-0 to start the season. It was so critical that they bank those wins to start the season, and they got a little luck in that. That very tough game in New Orleans is different now that Drew Brees is out for these 6 weeks, gives them a real chance to get to that 4-0.
And while they probably didn't need Zeke, the threat of Zeke has been good enough to take some of the defenses and open it up for Dak Prescott. Take a break. Coming up, should Freddie Kitchens give up his play calling duties? That's next on First Things First.